following Chalk Talk is brought to you by Isolite, the emergency lighting experts. Stay educated, my friends.
As you can imagine, there is incredible excitement here in Philadelphia for the Eagles. Unfortunately, neither Evan nor I are Eagles fans, and it makes our ears bleed a little bit every time we hear that. But in support of our good friend and colleague in the West Coast, Greg Keel, we took one on the chin for him and pulling for the hometown team. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matt Bird, the sales manager on the East Coast. Evan Ackman, our director of product development, will be running the Chalk Talk today. Just so you all are aware, this does go a little bit over our 15-minute commitment to you all, but it is extremely valuable in the details that Evan goes into regarding our LPDC2 and some use cases when you're specifying it or looking to include this on the project. So with that said, Evan, go ahead and take it away.
That's going to take like twice as long if you keep blowing up my spot about being a Steelers fan. So we'll see how that goes now that people know. Thanks for joining us here on the first Chalk Talk of the year. As Matt said, we do have a lot of material to get through on the LPDC2. Astute Chalk Talk listeners will know that we actually did a Chalk Talk on the LPDC2 a few months ago at this point when we announced the product. It's very presumptuous for me to assume that everyone sees absolutely everything that we do. So we figured we would do a little bit related to the launch of the product. One, obviously because it's available now, but two, because there were a lot of questions and comments that came up as we did the last Chalk Talk, as well as when we released the cut sheets. And so I thought I'd take the opportunity to kind of close up some of those holes right now. As always, this is a Chalk Talk, so you guys are muted, but that does not mean you cannot ask questions. Please throw it in the chat, throw it in the Q&A. We'll make sure that we don't get off this call until absolutely everything is answered for you guys. I want to start by just going over what we've made and kind of the breadth of the offering. And it is a very broad offering. I think of the LPDC2 product line really as three major products. First, I think of an indoor die-cast sign. This is the LPDC replacement, and it's sort of what you'd expect from a traditional indoor exit sign: AC, EM, SD, the traditional cast of colors, white, black, as well as our traditional brushed aluminum. Of course, custom colors are available. Really, the goal of this was to bring it in line with the other aesthetics that we use in our product line, particularly the thin line. That'll be obvious when we talk about the recessed product a little bit later. The outdoor is kind of the second prong of our attack. We have a lot of outdoor die-cast wet locations in the product line right now. When we started to create the LPDC, what we really wanted to do was have one aesthetic and one family that accounted for all of those different use cases. So this really replaces the Max and Max 2 product lines. Again, traditional exity things, AC, EM, SD, the same cast of colors that we've talked about with the indoor die-cast sign. Now, the third element of this product is the hybrid, the photoluminescent hybrid. For those of you who have not seen the Chalk Talks on that product, basically how it works is it's a traditional AC powered exit sign when AC power is available, but instead of using a battery to keep the sign illuminated when there's an emergency, there's a photoluminescent panel inside the sign that keeps it illuminated green while there's an emergency. The benefit of this is because it doesn't have a battery, it doesn't have maintenance obligations. We have really two of these in the product line right now with our DTH and DTH2. The DTH was based off of the LPDC platform. And so when we recreated this product line, we've brought the DTH2 or the DTH up into the new world, and we brought it sort of more as a first-class citizen up into the product line. So same look, same features and benefits, black, white, brushed aluminum, but we've also added an outdoor variant, which is something new for us. And so now you can have this dual tech hybrid maintenance-free sign in both indoor and outdoor applications. And so that covers sort of the standard exit sign use cases. But we've got to do absolutely everything. And so customization was a part of the LPDC product line. It was also not quite as much, but a little bit a part of the Max and Max 2 products. Now everything has the same customization options. As I mentioned before, custom colors, certainly a thing. You can also do sort of a variety of custom colors if you want like a pink center ring with a purple front and a blue back, we can do that. You can create that magical unicorn mermaid sign for you. And you can do it for both indoor and outdoor so that everything can absolutely match. We're also doing custom graphics. Again, indoor and outdoor both have that available. A little bit bigger aperture than we had on the old LPDC. This actually matches the TL's aperture, so you get a nice big custom graphics sign. All the features that you'd expect there: white, green, blue, red backlighting, although pragmatically most people just use the white because of the types of signs that end up being created. And we have the same list of like standard customs. So area of refuge, recording in progress, X-ray in use, not an exit. All of those things we actually have in stock, and we keep them in stock so that there's no lead time added for most of those like standard customs, as long as you're not asking for like 200 of them. So that's sort of the, covering all of the stuff that we used to do, but we've also added a lot of things to this product line. And this is not an exhaustive list, but it are the sort of the three things that I think are most important. First and foremost, I think the consolidation into a single family cannot be understated, or cannot be overstated, I guess. Um, the reason for that is, from a customer perspective, it brings consistency to, an entirety of an application. Obviously, like an indoor commercial office space really is only probably going to use indoor type products. But if you think about a lot of other use cases where you've got mixed indoor and outdoor space, places where you would want things like polycarbonate shields, like we have on our wet location sign, as well as, non-shielded products, places where you may want a mixture of dual tech hybrids because of maintenance access and traditional exit signs. That consistency in one product line means the feature set is the same, the color is the same, the look and feel is the same. Everything that goes into the job is going to be identical and match and look like it's all from, one company, rather than having to get different products that were made at different times throughout. We've added a lot of flexibility in terms of color combinations. That's not just the custom color option. It's also the flexibility to have different color rings and faces. For those of you who are intimately familiar with the LPDC, you'll know that we can't do something like a brushed aluminum housing with a white face. It's just not how we make it. So that limitation goes away and the flexibility comes back. Because of the construction, we make the ring back and front as separate pieces. You can do something like you would see over there on the right side with a black center ring with a brushed front and back. You can do that now in this product line. So elimination of limitations, really bringing the flexibility to you guys and for the specification community. The last, but certainly not least, is the architectural pendant. Really, the idea here was we wanted to bring some of the architectural elements that we've created in the other parts of our product line, most notably the thin line as well as the ELT2, and we wanted to bring it to this, pseudo-architectural die-cast exit sign. So that architectural hang straight pendant for indoor applications. It's useful if you're in a location that has seismic requirements. In certain areas where there's seismic activity, the requirement is that the pendant be somewhat compliant, so it can kind of swing around instead of snapping and breaking. That's all well and good, but it's also good for uneven ceilings. If you've got cathedral ceilings, for example, this allows you to mount it on a slope ceiling, and then the sign will just still hang dead straight down towards the bottom. And so if you look at this compared to the existing products that are going to be discontinued, it's at least as good as, and in almost all of these cases, improving over the existing products. From the Max and Max 2, that existing outdoor die-cast exit sign, we're bringing forward a lot of the esoteric mounting options that the Max has that existed as the only place in our product line that had them. So stanchion mounting, for example, that gives you the ability to mount on a pole effectively. We're adding color options to the outdoor version of the sign, and we've achieved a NEMA 4X rating instead of a simplified IP66 rating. That really means that it's a much more robust sign than what we're replacing. From the LPDC, we've brought forward all the mounting, all of the electrical options, and we've actually added even more mounting options to it, as well as reduced some of the limitations that existed in the existing product line. LPDC HD. The wet location version of the sign has the polycarbonate shield on it. That thing is built like a tank. It can also be furnished with tamper-proof screws. And so it's a much more ruggedized version of the sign, and it's much more aesthetically pleasing. We're actually working on some additional ruggedization options for different mounting configurations. We'll have more on that when we have something to announce. But the standard wet location sign is very impact resistant. It's very industrial. And then the DTH, of course, obviously we're bringing forward the same technology into the LPDC2, but now we've added all the mounting options from the other products, as I've mentioned, as well as the outdoor listing on the product. And so all of a sudden you've got a product line that's significantly more flexible than what it's replacing. And as I mentioned before, it's replacing a lot of different products, including all of these ones. Now, something that's going to be, happening a lot more in 2025 is the focus on applications, not just as a part of this new product release, but also as sort of a dedicated, chalk talks. We may do a chalk talk on particular applications, the particular challenges, and the types of products that can go and meet those needs. We don't really want to be talking about our products as just this bag of features and sort of everything can go everywhere, because when we're designing these products, we have certain applications in mind. And so we want to promote those to you guys so that it gets your creative juices flowing about when these products might be appropriate for your customers. It's not an exhaustive list. You're going to see two things on the next slide. That doesn't mean that there's not hundreds of different applications for the product. It means that, there are two that sort of are maybe unique that, fit very well with this product line. So you're going to see a lot of this in 2025 and starting now. And it's kind of a hard one to start on, frankly, because as I mentioned in like that first slide, the brief for this new product was we wanted to replace a very broad array of existing products. And so we have this kind of dichotomy here of architectural versus industrial. The LPDC2 fills multiple roles. Like the indoor sign, yeah, it's a rugged die-cast sign, but one of the ideas was that we were focusing on super clean lines, bringing that consistent aesthetic in so that it matches our thin line products, which is a very specification grade, very architectural product. We have a lot of flexibility in terms of customization and the options and mounting. That gives it a lot of flexibility for specified spaces. And it's really focused on performance. It's a very bright, evenly illuminated exit sign. It has the ability to run external low-level exit signs or some remote lights off of it. And so from that perspective, it feels very architectural. But if you contrast that with the outdoor wet location signs, these, while they still have that, nice consistent aesthetic, we really built them like tanks. So they're just dump trucks, basically. Like NEMA 4X is a very waterproof sign. That's 1 gallon per second in a jet of water incident on the sign. That's a very waterproof type rating. -40C is a very cold rating for the sign. That's probably colder than it gets anywhere in the United States, maybe with the exception of some very northern Alaska areas. So very cold weather. The polycarbonate shield that's on it is thick and very impact resistant. And so, you have this, in one sense, it's an architectural sign, and in one sense, it's a kind of like a hazardous location, impact location type sign. And so that leaves us with really two different types of applications, maybe three when we start to talk about the hybrid. But when I think about the indoor version of this sign, I think it fills that sort of high to mid-end architectural specification grade role. Not quite as high-end as an edgelit, but it has some advantages when compared to it. Think about restaurants, the powder-coated finishes, the customization options, the fact that it's super high visible and super uniform means that it's going to go and match restaurant aesthetics. In fact, those were some of the pictures that we sent out as a part of the announcement to this, was its use case in a restaurant where it's really going to blend in. That hang straight pendant's going to be nice if there are false ceilings or you need to get the exit sign down to a lower level. So that's really good. As a pragmatic aspect, edgelit exit signs are a little bit higher end, but sometimes they can put red and green light down on the floor a little bit because of how they work. The LEDs kind of shine downward into them. Whereas in something like the LPDC2, it actually has a full cutoff where the LEDs are at the bottom and they shine towards the top. So now all of a sudden, patrons and guests in the retail space or the restaurant don't actually have that light kind of blasting down at them. So that can be a little bit nice. There's a little bit of an advantage these things have over an edge lit. If you think about places like museums and historical buildings where, those are like very difficult renovation and retrofit type of applications. They've got, stone facades where very difficult to add conduit to it, which is something that may be required for significant retrofits. We have a lot of flexibility in terms of not just the color and finish on the LPDC2, but also things like that direct conduit entry and the stanchion mounting means that you can get the exit sign into more applications where a traditional back mount with wire entry from the back or a canopy from the top aren't necessarily appropriate. So the flexibility really brings in those additional applications in the indoor arena. From an outdoor perspective, I don't just consider it outdoor. It's outdoor and industrial or ruggedized application. That polycarbonate shield is the Vandal shield. So they're one and the same, which is why you're not going to see Vandal shield as like a dedicated option. If you ordered an indoor sign with a Vandal shield, that's the same as a wet location sign. So to keep the ordering simple, we've just said there's two base products. One of them has the Vandal Shield standard. That's a wet location. One of them does not. That ruggedization opens up a lot of possibilities, not just outdoor applications. Obviously, schools and institutional type applications mean that if you're going to have balls bouncing around a gym and hitting it, or kids are going to be smacking it, or there's a chance that a forklift might bump up against it, like this is really a perfect sign for that application. You don't have to put a cheap plastic sign in there with an expensive wire guard over it. You can just put the sign. And the high visibility means if you're going to have these things in an auditorium or a gym or a multi-function room, you don't have to have lots of them. People are going to be able to see it and it's still going to be safe. And you can have the same aesthetic in those potential impact areas as you would in other areas, like in the classrooms, in the patient rooms, for example, or in the rest of the facility if it's like in a warehouse, because it's all part of the same product line. And then also not just dedicated outdoor spaces, but places where they are mixed use. Think about parking structures, which sometimes in some areas they could be exposed to at least cold weather or rain, and in other applications like where the elevator concourse is, it would be a sort of a traditional indoor sign. All of a sudden, this makes lots of sense. I mean, think about a stadium, right? You've got all kinds of exit signs that are out in the unconditioned space. People need to get out from the, all the way out to the gates outside where it's going to get rain, it's going to be cold. But there's also restaurants, suites, back of house. The LPDC2 is now one of those products that just handles absolutely everything in those applications. The hybrid sort of forms the third tier of the attack, and it's a little bit of a different message. Yeah, I mean, of course, everything that we've said so far about the wet location and the ruggedized applications, outdoor stuff, that all still applies. But I think when you're talking about these maintenance-free hybrids, you really want to talk about the maintenance reduction, and I think about like geographically disparate type applications, campuses, parking structures that are far away from a facility, concert venues and stadiums where maybe there's a large area, but also it's not constantly occupied. And there may not be a facilities team there on a monthly basis where that maintenance can even happen. And so if you have products dispersed over a large area, or it's in a place where there's not occupants all the time, that doesn't alleviate your responsibilities towards fire code. And so a maintenance-free sign means you don't have to make a special visit out to the parking garage if it's not being occupied right now. You don't have to make a special visit to the stadium or concert venue if there's not something going on. The sign is maintenance-free, so you don't necessarily need to go out and visit that on the same time schedule. The other thing that often gets overlooked, and one of the big applications that people are focused on right now, are places like data centers. And data centers are actually very high security installations. The actual area where the servers are, that houses people's most sensitive data. It's a heck of a vector for a threat. And so data centers don't want people inside the server area, but it's mandated that they have exit signs, emergency lights, and things like that. And so if you don't want to have facilities teams that may not be otherwise secure, or they may not have the right security level, you could put these maintenance-free exit signs in there, and that's one less reason why you have to violate the security boundary on a monthly basis. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about the maintenance-free signs. It's not just, I want to put this in a place where there's no maintenance. Think about large areas or high security areas where you don't want facilities people just wandering around to go and document exit signs. As I mentioned before, there were a couple frequently asked questions that have come up since we announced this product a couple months ago. I think I've addressed most of these in part of the presentation, but I'll just do it real quickly here at the end. Color limitations. For the indoor sign, we don't have the same limitations that we had on the old LPDC. You can mix and match brushed and non-brushed and custom colors however you want. The outdoor signs do, however, have a limitation. We do not want to have brushed aluminum frames outdoor. The reason for that is brushed aluminum requires a sealant so that the aluminum doesn't corrode over time. We like the look of our brushed aluminum, and so it's a water-based sealant that basically soaks into the pores of the aluminum. It's not like a lacquer that sits over the top. Because it's water-based, if it's outside, it runs the risk of being washed away and then the aluminum corroding, so we don't want that. So white or black or custom color on the frame or the ring of it, and then you can still have the brushed aluminum on the face of the sign, because you can we cover that with the polycarbonate shield. Vandal shields, as I mentioned, there's no vandal shield for this. Just get the outdoor rated sign. That's the ruggedized one. That's the one that's carries the rating for everything. There's no special vandal shield. Flashers and fire alarms, we brought that forward from the LPDC product line, but because it's a very infrequently ordered option, and every time people order it, it's almost always with the SD, we've kind of tied those things together in the LPDC2. So if you need a flasher or fire alarm interface, you're going to have to get the SD version of the product. We have added more clarity to the cut sheet. If it's not clear yet, we'll keep making it more and more clear. Wet location pendants was the last thing that popped up. The architectural hang straight pendant is only for indoor applications. We can't gasket and seal that thing because of all the points of flexibility and mounting. So on an outdoor pendant, we have the direct conduit entry. That's what you'd use. And then you'd use a standard off-the-shelf wet location pendant, the sort of the circular down rod that you'd get. People make those. You can buy them at the Home Depot or Grainger, whatever. I know that would be confusing, and so we've actually added a couple drawings to the instruction sheets. I've put them here, so if you go back and reference the Chalk Talk, you'll have it. But this is how that works. You use the wet location conduit. You put a standard piece of conduit into it with threading on it, and then you go up to a wet location canopy up top, and then it all just kind of works. Again, this will be in the instruction manual for you as well. This product's available now. We've sent out price guides. We've released the cut sheets, and we're updating them as questions have come up. They're in stock. They're sitting in the warehouse behind me, ready to be built, ready for your orders. So lead time should be pretty standard right now. Custom colors, custom graphics, the hybrid may have an extra week associated with it, so keep that in mind. The other thing, when I announced this product, a few months ago, and I've mentioned throughout the course of this presentation, the old products that are being replaced are going away. I have some guidance I want to give you. The LPDC, the Max and Max 2 are going away as of March 1st. So if you need those, get your orders in. Obviously, we'll keep a couple around, and if you get in a bind, reach out to Matt or Greg. We'll work with you. We can make that all work. The one caveat I will say is if you need a recessed LPDC, we will honor those orders until about June, because I don't have the recessing tray quite done yet for this. So if you need a recessed LPDC, we'll still take that order. Everything else we want to convert over to the LPDC2. With that said, certainly appreciate you guys attending here today. I'm Evan, Tom, Greg, and Matt are on the line. If you guys have any questions about the LPDC2 or anything we do, please don't hesitate to reach out. We're here for you guys. If you have questions about the LPDC2 or this presentation, I'll stick around now to answer them. Otherwise, have a good rest of your month. We will see you in, I think it's a short break. I think we're going to do the February Chalk Talk a week earlier than you might expect due to vacation schedules. So we'll see you next month. Thank you all for being here. Go Birds.